Now, moving on, have you ever heard of nanotechnology? Now, to tell us more about this is Vice Representative of can nanotechnologies benefit Africa's development? That is the question we are dealing with today, I beg your pardon. Now, this week, some 20 Kenyan nanotechnology researchers and policymakers gathered in Nairobi to discuss this question. And to help us find out the answers to this is Professor Kevin Urama and Professor Wiebe Bijker. I hope I had that right.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's begin with what is nanotechnology?
Nanotechnology is science and engineering that works at the very small nano scale, at the scale of about a nanometer. And just to think, what is a nanometer? Think of your nails. They grow. You need to cut them every week or 2 weeks. A nail grows in 1 minute about 10 nanometers. My hair has a thickness of about 80,000 nanometers. So you can imagine nanoscience, nanotechnology is working at that very, very small scale, and is able to do lots of very nice things.
Okay. Now, in terms of it becoming here in Kenya, or what the conference was about, can you tell us more about that?
Now, the conference was about looking at the potential roles of nanotechnology in leveraging development in Kenya, and also learning from Europe and India on how these have been helping them in leveraging development. So it's more of a multilateral learning experience to see how nanotechnology could be of use to us in Kenya and Africa in general. And in doing that, we've seen a lot of the potential benefits of nanotechnology for leveraging development, giving the small nanoscale at which it works. Nanotechnologies have been seen to have potential benefits in strengthening materials, in drug delivery, in water purification, in most of all the development challenges that we do have in Africa. And then at ATPS, the African Technology Policy Studies Network, working with the Maastricht University and University of Hyderabad, we've been able to put together a project to try and start looking into how this technology of the future can be of use to Africa, and also looking into how we can govern these technologies in order to ensure that we don't make the mistakes that we made during the genetically modified organisms revolution, and be able to get prepare Kenya to have the right policy, the right regulation schemes, the right occupational health and safety schemes, and the right policies to ensure that we will be able to harness nanotechnology to address our problems, our development challenges, while at the same time mitigating the huge potential risks that could be associated with nanotechnologies if they are not well regulated and standardized.
Okay, what are some of the risks that we're talking about?
Well, the risk that we are mostly discussing is toxicity. There is something very funny happening at that small scale. The jewelry that you are wearing is silver that does not react at all. It is the most safe material that you can imagine, gold, silver. If, however, you make silver particles at that nanoscale, if you make gold particles at nanoscale, they suddenly change their characteristics, and some of those characteristics can be toxic. Now, the problem is that scientists do not yet completely understand that toxicity. So it's different from, say, radioactive radiation. That's also dangerous, but we understand it. Nanoparticles can be toxic, but we don't quite completely understand it. So countries need to take decisions. How much do we want to invest because of the huge benefits that Professor Urama sketched? And to what extent do we want to be careful because of the toxicity, for example? And because it is not something that we can completely leave to the scientists, as I said, the toxicity is not completely understood. This is really something that citizens should also be involved in debating.
Okay, where else in the world is this nanotechnology being used?
Now, nanotechnology and the current naming of the technology is a new phenomenon that is seen to have great potential for growth and development worldwide. And the advantage we see for the ATPS with its partners working on nanotechnology at this moment is because it's basically a new technology, an emerging technology that many people are still grappling with. People are still grappling with the research to understand how to use nanotechnology to enhance the functionality, the durability, the sustainability, the usability of different products, cosmetics, different kinds of products that nanotechnology can be applied to. And at the moment, as we speak, there is no country in the world that has a thriving policy on nanotechnology, or even that has adapted their occupational health and safety rules to be able to take into account the risks associated with nanotechnology. Basically because of the fact that there are uncertainties regarding what these risks could be. But if you ask me which countries are like leading in terms of research and development in this area, I would name the Netherlands and also the United States of America. And that is why we chose to have partners from the Netherlands, leading university of the Netherlands, to help us look into these issues and try to see how we operate it. But in terms of nanoproducts has always been there in nature in different ways, but we didn't know about them. And nanotechnology research is happening a lot now, even in Africa. In South Africa, one of our students have been looking into these issues, and there's quite a lot of nanotechnology in health delivery, nanotechnology in water delivery, and other things happening in South Africa. In Kenya here, a lot of work is already going on in the University of Nairobi. One Professor Bernard Aduda, you might know, has been doing quite some work on trying to see how these new technologies can be used to help in addressing challenges in medical health delivery, energy products, ceramics for water delivery, and so on. That's going on. And Kenya seems to be well placed in Africa in terms of being proactive and trying to create policies and rules and begin to think about it. And that's why we chose Kenya as the African case study. And that's actually credit to the National Council for Science and Technology, NCST Kenya, under the able leadership of Professor Shaukat Abdul Razak. They are already doing a lot, trying to interact with us. They even went with us to India when we went to look into putting together this project and see what technologies are going on. But different nanoproducts are already being used, but then how to regulate them, how to mitigate the risks are still ongoing across the world. And Kenya, I would say actually, is at the forefront in terms of where the rest of the world is in terms of thinking about how to create safety rules and regulations around nanotechnology.
Okay. What I understand from this is that nanotechnology can be used cross-border. It's not only alienated to probably say only energy. It can be used cross-border in various aspects of the economy. If it works, what kind of potential does it have to boost a country's economy?
It has a huge potential. It will, if it works, it will help energy production and distribution to the most remote villages, because solar energy will be much more efficient than it is now. It will help water purification, so that drinking water is available at places where it's now either not available or much more difficult. Nanotechnology can help to build much stronger and lighter materials. So in the construction industry, you'll be able to make things that you're at the moment just not able to make. So I think that potentially nanotechnologies can be hugely important for a much broader development of a country than only the narrow economic one. It is also relating to health, it's also relating to distribution of quality of life. So I would say that it is something that has enormous potential. I think you cannot mention one walk of life where it cannot have effects. It's quite likely that your sunscreen already has it now. It's quite likely that the tires of your car already have it now.
All right. Now, this was the first ever conference like this in Kenya, right? How was the response from possibly the people who attended?
Okay, the response has been impressive in terms of really finding experts. This project was started 2 years ago, And we've had series of bringing Professor Bijker and his team over. We have also sent out researchers to go through universities in Kenya to find out the experts who are working on this, and also nano products that are possibly in the markets and so on. So all the people that we really knew that have experience and expertise in this within the different universities of Kenya and different government agencies of Kenya responded hugely. And the hallmark of that response is that yesterday being the Jamhuri Day, the conference was going on and people were there. Even though some of us had to sneak out to go for the Jamhuri Day because we really also wanted to celebrate that. But the commitment is very, very impressive.
Okay. This is a relatively new concept for everybody in the world, and sometimes people do not like change or are adamant to accept change. What are some of the other challenges that you have faced while coming up and researching about nanotechnology?
I think the big challenge for Africa, and for that matter for every country or every continent, is to take control over the development of nanotechnology. Decide for yourself, for Africa, what are the priorities, where do we want to put our effort, our policy effort, what do we want to improve of life, and then target nanotechnology there. And choices in Africa will be different from choices in India. And I think that the real challenge is for a country to take control over its own science and technology, in this case of nanotechnology, rather than just importing it from Europe or the US or Japan or wherever.
Okay. Now, Professor Wiebe mentioned something to do with the toxicity of this technology. Is there a fear that possibly when it starts, we might not be able to manage this, because we've had issues of really simple accidents happening, like what happened with the Keny fire? Are you afraid that we might not be able to manage this kind of challenges and risks?
Okay, that's a very good question, and that question cuts across all technologies that we use and import in Africa. And the way to address the challenge is basically getting ready and not just reacting to the issues. Like if you think about the Keny fire, if we were more proactive in trying to regulate the use of resources around the area, the standardization and other things, maybe it could have been prevented. And that is why at the ATPS we are trying to move forward and say, let us try and do research on this issue so that we can understand how to manage these issues, and also learn from our partners in Europe, in America, in Asia, on how they are responding and reacting to these issues. So there are three key things that we need to do. One is to create regulatory environment, regulatory frameworks for occupational health and safety, to ensure that any firm or industry that will get involved in the production and use of nanomaterials will be able to know what risks there are and how to protect citizens from getting such accidents. Because in the case of nanotechnologies, the accidents could actually be long-lasting, and that's the main challenge. And given the uncertainties regarding the risks, then the need for more research becomes even more, that we need to try and understand it more and more. And traditionally, what we normally do is allow research to be done in the US, in Europe, and then the technologies are developed and we import those technologies, what we call technology transfer. Now we are trying to say, no, can we build our own capacity in-house to be able to understand these technologies and try to produce these technologies within our own local environment and target the technologies to solving our development problems, the ones that we really want to look into. Now, besides occupational health, there is also need for standardization. So what kind of nano products are safer than the others? Because certainly the production standards in the way these technologies or any technology is produced also has implications for the risks associated with it. So we need to make sure that the technologies that are going to be either imported or produced here will be of world-class standards, that all these risks and safety issues would have been taken care of. But then we also need an overarching policy framework to make sure that the technologies do not elude us. And I will try to point out what happened or is happening in terms of GM crops. Because when we do not understand the benefits, the risks, and other things around a particular technology, there is a very great likelihood that we will run off to it from the wrong sides, which means wrong perceptions, wrong attitudes towards it can build up. And because of that, we can miss out on such technologies. So we need policies that will be able to guard this kind of new technologies so that we'll be able not to miss the potential benefits and opportunities within it.
Okay. Now, with every new technology comes with it huge costs. How much are we talking about in terms of research work?
The interesting thing is that can vary a lot. Different countries invest hugely, billions in it. The US, India, in European countries. There is money invested in nanotechnologies in Kenya, more so in South Africa. The interesting thing is that I think you can already do a lot with a normal budget of research. It would help to get more research funding, and I'm sure that my colleagues here in the physics labs and the nano labs would like more funding, and I think they deserve it. But having not a lot of funding is no reason not to study nanotechnologies. And some of the nanotechnologies that might be directly beneficial for development, such as water purification, are things that you can work on without the huge budgets that the United States has available.
Okay. Will we be able to afford it? Now, in terms of we are undergoing a very bad economic patch at the moment, and in terms of investments, people are facing a lot of budget cuts.
Yeah.
Do you think we will be able to afford it?
Now, the choices we make regarding what we invest in defines what our welfare tomorrow will become. So yes, in every country, it's not just in Kenya. There's global recessions, the economy is shrinking in many places, and even in the US, Kenya is growing faster than the US, you might like to know, and faster than most countries in Europe at the moment. But still, they are investing in these issues because they know that tomorrow depends on the decisions they make today. And again, because nanotechnologies has potential to be able to address most of those challenges we are facing now, in terms of food processing, in terms of drug delivery, in terms of water access to the poor and to everybody, in terms of improving energy access, then you find that investing in it is like a chicken and egg thing. So if we don't invest, we will not be able to leverage the benefits. And then if we continue to depend on the technologies of today, my greatest fear is that nanotechnology will grow as it will, and then we will remain consumers in the global market again, because when the technologies are already developed, then there will be no comparative advantage for us to reinvent the wheel. So my encouragement to all African countries, African governments, is to please try to think tomorrow and think longer term as we try to address the problems of today, because our today we have the problems we have in Africa, maybe because we haven't thought really long term in our previous policies and development strategies. But on top of that, nanotechnologies have solutions for today. And actually we can bring down the energy costs, we can bring down the cost of water bills if there are options that are there. And if nanotechnology actually delivers the promises that we expect, then it will be there. Then another thing is, we talk about Duakali in Kenya. There is Jigad in India. So our scientists are also challenged to try and develop, because the cost of nanotechnology development is actually in the investment in the laboratory equipment to be able to do the research. But there is this professor in India who has actually tried, Jigad is just like talking of Duakali here, to use improvised materials from recycled products to be able to produce equipment that would otherwise cost $200,000 US, and then it will cost him about $10,000 US to produce the same equipment, homegrown, locally made, in the Duakali form, and it's still also producing cutting-edge scientists and using it to do produce cutting-edge products. So there's a lot of challenge in terms of innovation that we need to try not to wait to import all those things, but also apply our brains to what we have here and see how we can be able to address them. But maybe, Prof, you can also throw more light to this.
Okay, maybe briefly as we wind up.
No, I think the key thing is to look beyond the standard view of looking into laboratories. This example that Professor Urama gave is going to the junkyard to get some of your materials. The other plea is trying to involve stakeholders, consumers, patients in discussions about nanotechnology. In the Netherlands we did that, and the interesting result is that at the end of that debate, the citizens in the Netherlands realized that actually there are more risks related to nanotechnology than they thought, but they also wanted more investments in nanotechnology because they made the decision that really we balance the benefits to the risk, and let's go for it.
Okay, well, thank you very much and all the best with that.
Thank you.
We have been speaking to Professor Wiebe and Professor Urama about nanotechnology. Is it the future for African countries? They are using Kenya as the case study, and of course this has a huge potential in terms of developing any country's economy. Let's now take a look at what we have for you on other news that we have been following up for you today.
Working environment, especially if you're an executive at what might be called a higher level, because I'll tell you why. The guest we have with us is an old friend. He's been with us on PM Live, I think twice or thrice, but today we actually asked him to come in for something very interesting. His name is Kenneth Oyola. First of all, no introduction, by the way. Kenneth is an old friend of PM Live from Nokia, and I don't know where to begin because I know what I want to do with this conversation, but I want to begin. Let's talk about Nokia first, because it's a Nokia festival on the table.
Nice.
which must make you very happy. And you have to do this so people can see
quite
how many.
Pleased, yeah.
Yes, not free advertising, just the fact that you carry 3 phones. And so I had to bring mine to be the 4th one. But anyway, when you look at Nokia and its strategy for Africa, there's been a bit of, one may call it controversy, one may call it being in the news twice or thrice in the past few weeks, with regard to the fact that they have decided, or at least, well, you have decided as Nokia, to move what was the HQ here in East Africa, in Kenya, to be operated from the Southern African office. Now, people are saying that's a good thing for consolidation of operations. Some people are saying it's a bad thing because everyone else is moving into Kenya, and suddenly Nokia is the only company that's going in the opposite direction. What's behind that thinking?
That's a good question, Wallace. I think what's happening is Nokia globally has done some reorganization, and the reorganization meant that we want to bring services closer to the people. So I think for us, what it has meant, number one, is India, Middle East, and Africa become one region. Number two, India and Middle East. So India is massive. So think about India and Middle East and Africa becoming one region. Head office out of Dubai. And for Eastern Southern Africa, which is the area that I look after up until the end of this year, we're coming together with South Africa, and the hope in this is that we're able to consolidate resources and have most of the decision-making function being done locally, and whereby we're going to have Nairobi as a sales office and Johannesburg as the head office.
Which is what used to be Nairobi's role.
Yes.
What is Nairobi overseeing? I know I asked you this question a few months ago when you were here, but just to put it into clarity, what's Nairobi overseeing now before that changeover happens?
Okay, so out of Nairobi, we look after Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Angola, Zambia, and Mozambique. And then represented for all functions, so we're responsible for top line, bottom line. So literally the P&L, we run that out of Nairobi.
So you have to go back to Finland and report on your numbers?
We reported into Dubai kind of from a consolidation, but now we change from Dubai into South Africa, becoming one area.
Let's speak about what the true topic is, except for the fact that you have 3 phones. No, I literally have not done this. I just said keep your phone on you because I want to show you guys how many phones you
I'm gonna give you a walkthrough on why.
I'm gonna give you a walkthrough about how come a gentleman has 3 telephones and you put them all down on a dinner table. But more to the point, because the title that I actually selected for today was executive options. Is it executive? Yeah, it's executive option. That's what we decided on it. But anyway, the whole topic behind that is you're an executive, and I know you've been in the Business Daily and the Daily Nation with regard to your particular individual decision about this move.
Yeah.
Because it's getting to the point where we have a lot of Kenyan executives who are in global corporations and people who are here in Kenya operating in multinationals. And almost always you get to the level where you have to make a choice. Is you're getting high in the company and they say you cannot operate from Nairobi anymore. You have to operate from our office in X place or Y place or Z place. Now, this sort of decision making at an individual level, what goes into it?
Okay, so I think what I must say, I mean, just speaking from my heart, is this is a very difficult decision. Those of you who know me out there, I'm very passionate about Nokia. You cut my blood and it flows the blue Nokia. So